Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Liberty Rundown.
I'm Sean,
And I'm David.
and here's the news.
That was a lot less
How was it that
Keemstar
time?
than last time.
Was it?
Yeah, that
I
was
was, I
definitely
was,
a lot less Keemstar, which
I was
is
really,
a good thing.
I was trying to be a little melodramatic, but also trying to do the news voice.
And
I don't know.
Here's the news. All right. So, so today we have the TikTok ban under discussion. And I think the words TikTok ban is very misleading because TikTok is not actually banned, sadly. As I am still assaulted by these videos on a daily basis. I don't know.
we were
the app.
we were really closing in on it. Yeah, I know. I have a lot of friends who save the videos and post them to Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. But we were really closing in on this thing until Microsoft. I say we sarcastically. I don't actually care for it to be banned. It's not something I'm pushing for because as an anarchist, I obviously can't stand government intervention in markets. But as it was getting closer to being to clarify, as it was getting closer to being banned, we had Microsoft sort of step up to the plate here and express interest in purchasing the company, which sort of slowed things down a bit. And now we sort of have a new executive order from Donald Trump saying that it will be banned by mid-September unless it's sold to a U.S. buyer.
That's actually interesting because what was it? Oh yeah. Before I continue on this tangent though, not tangent, the main podcast thing. Before I continue on this, I want to say too, even though we are anarchists, we're talking about this in a frame of a statist mindset about reality. And the thing with us is we tend to get lost in the theoretical a little too much.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this, we're talking about how things are and not how things should be.
Right. And a lot of that discussion kind of comes down to, well, what can be done that's sort of, I guess, in a sense, best with what we're dealing with, playing the hand we're dealt, so to speak, right? I mean, we don't have a stateless society. So if we're going to be dealing with a sort of society that we have now, what's the best way to kind of work with it, work around it? Anywhere from hopefully developing better legislation or just repealing legislation in general, which would be ideal, to bootlegging, if you will.
And the best part about this is, the most interesting part that is the fact that China and the US are heavily involved in these two companies, Microsoft and TikTok, especially TikTok, because Chinese companies are intertwined with the state to such a degree that this is not free market interaction we're talking about. This is actually more of an international relations case regarding big data exchange between two nations.
Especially giving sort of China's economic state right now, right? Where, we talk a lot about China being this communist country, but they're not really that anymore. I mean, the CCP has a lot of power, and they do, anyone who's keeping up with Hong Kong understands what the CCP is up to, and they're very vile. But as far as how the Chinese economy operates with the government, it's much more of a cronyist system now. Yeah, it's actually a lot closer to what America looks like.
It's very similar,
or at least looked like at one point.
It's very similar to, I'm trying not to use this term in a loaded way, but fascist, in a sense.
Right. Well, like the textbook definition of fascism.
Right. As in, China supports government-backed corporations.
Yeah, and you have a very deep and intertwined intermingling of economy and state, where the state is, if not outright owning corporations, they're very involved with them.
Exactly. And there's also a heavy amount of censorship going on that's supported by these corporations on behalf of the state, which is actually pretty fascist.
Yes.
Obviously, the Chinese government didn't sit down with Deng Xiaoping 45 years ago, didn't sit down with a textbook and go, "Oh yeah, I really like this Mussolini guy." It's just the way things turned out.
Right. And so, yeah, so China deals with a lot of that right now. Actually, next week we might even be able to sort of get into that because just this morning, a news company in China, I forget what they're called, Apple Today, I believe it's what it's called, was the only media outlet to go against the CCP. And the owner and the executives all got arrested and will likely spend their lives in prison under the national security law.
It's really called Apple Today? Well, I guess they're in China.
I believe
they can avoid a lawsuit.
Yeah, I believe it's called Apple Today. Something there. Apple is in there. I know that. But let's get back to sort of this week's topic here, and we're talking about this TikTok ban, where we have a ban via executive order, unless sold to a U.S. buyer by mid-September. I think anyone right now who's looking at this thing is realizing or thinking that it's likely going to be Microsoft who is this U.S. buyer, being that they're the ones who did step up to the plate when this ban first started circulating and being talked about, especially by Donald Trump.
And that's actually pretty important too, because a lot of people think, I call this the smooth brain theory. A lot of people think that Trump wanted to ban TikTok when he's faced criticism, or because he faced criticism during his Tulsa rally.
Yeah.
Because these quote-unquote TikTok teens, which is not a term anyone under 30 has ever unironically used. These TikTok teens.
Thanks, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for that.
Well, I mean, they booked this rally. These were free tickets. They booked it completely.
Yeah.
And, like, no one showed up at his Tulsa rally. Obviously,
it was a very tiny crowd.
Obviously, they didn't do a very good job at IP tracing and all that, so they could have sanitized their databases a lot better, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but that's a whole nother discussion. But people think that Trump wanted to ban TikTok because of that. But here's the thing: if we apply a simple case of Occam's razor here, why would Trump want to ban TikTok and only TikTok, when he's faced criticism on pretty much every social media platform, from Facebook, Twitter, and if anything, these platforms have done more in terms of organizing people against Trump than TikTok has.
Yeah, they've sort of emboldened his the base that is against him, so to speak, with like fact checking and exactly. All that other stuff. So
and the thing with this too is Trump has been talking about trade with China for years. And the fact that he's been talking about trade with China for years and he's banning a Chinese app, the writing is on the wall. He wants to walk into the room, put his dick on the table and say, TikTok is ours now by September.
Right. Yeah. And, it's very telling sort of his attitude here. And, he's been sort of doing this back and forth with China for a while now. And this is very different from candidate Trump, who couldn't stop talking about how much he loved China.
Yeah.
To now at this point where he's sort of like, launching trade wars with them, right? We have this TikTok ban. I believe there were everything moves so fast. I know there was talk of tariffs previously, and then now we have this, and also this incoming sort of WeChat ban, which is a really another interesting development, given the TikTok ban that came right before it.
Yeah, WeChat,
so to speak.
WeChat's actually a huge ban. No one I know uses WeChat. I imagine most people watching this barely even know what WeChat is.
Right.
WeChat is a very, very popular application for Chinese people, both in mainland China and people in America who are communicating with family from mainland China.
Yeah, when I was living in Seattle, I had Seattle actually has a very large, a pretty large Chinese population, and I had a lot of Chinese coworkers, and they were constantly using WeChat. So this is kind of definitely a bit of a bigger hammer than normal when it comes to WeChat, especially considering the context here when you look at WeChat's parent company.
Exactly, Tencent Games, or just Tencent.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about Tencent is they make an assload of money from video games. Not just like Raid Shadow Legends or whatever. I don't even know if that's owned by Tencent, but they own pretty much all of Riot Games, I believe. I'm actually going to pull this shit up because we don't have a Jamie here. I'm pulling up this article, and we're going to link it in the description. Not the description, the pinned comment. Because the pinned comment is way more based in Red Pill than the description is.
It's basically a Chad.
Yeah. The virgin description versus the Chad pinned comment.
Chad.
But anyway, Tencent, and this is just by video games, Tencent has made $15.2 billion in quarters 1 through 3 of 2019. For perspective, Sony, which is a pretty huge video game company, because they publish an ass load of games.
And this is strictly video game. This is not all these companies' other revenue. This is just video game revenue.
Sony made $9.4 billion. That is just over half of what Tencent made.
Yeah.
And Tencent owns... Let's see what they own. They own pretty much all of League of Legends.
Yeah.
And they actually own that since 2011.
Yeah.
They own 84% in Supercell. And Supercell doesn't sound important, but when you realize what they made, they're actually much more important than you think. It's Clash of Clans. 80% of New Zealand's grinding gear games, Path of Exile, which is a huge percentage. And Path of Exile is actually this free-to-play game on Steam. It's like Diablo 2 almost. I would highly recommend it, despite 80% of it being owned by Tencent. 40% of Epic Games, which is, those guys who made one of the most popular games of this decade, Unreal Tournament 4. And 5% in Blizzard, which is surprising because of the Hong Kong controversy with Blizzard.
Yeah. And that's, you got Blizzard and then Ubisoft and Paradox, which it has 5% in all of those companies. And I think most people who have played video games past the casual cell phone level, even on console and and furthermore PC, have played a game that has been made by either Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, and or Paradox.
Yeah, Paradox makes some of my favorite mental breakdown simulators.
Yeah, they happen to make City Skylines, which is a big favorite of mine.
Yeah, I remember I had to stop playing EU4 once because I literally had a breakdown because the sense of loss of control in that game is one of the most profound experiences of the human condition. Especially with all the DLC. My God, there's so much DLC.
Is that Europa Universalis?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that one. Okay.
But let's continue on the actual point here. These guys lost. Sorry, you go.
No. So this is more. Is this a? Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this more of a WeChat ban or a Tencent ban?
A WeChat ban, because these Tencent studios, or a Tencent ban, will absolutely destroy the gaming industry.
Yeah, in a lot of markets in general. They've got their hands in so many things. But if you look at the gaming industry alone, they lead the gaming industry, and Sony, who's behind them in video game revenue, is almost half of what they do in a 9-month period, if we're talking about quarter 1 to 3 in 2019.
Except, I don't know if losing League of Legends would be such a bad thing. I joke. Only half joking, but yeah, this is not a Tencent ban. This is just a WeChat ban.
Yeah.
It is very protectionist, but it's not as protectionist as banning Tencent stock exchange or doing other stuff like that. Now, this does deal a very critical blow to Tencent, because they lost, and this is a huge number. This is a big boy number, so make sure.
Yeah, this is a number most people can't even wrap their brains around.
They lost $66 billion over the past 2 days. And here's the I'm going to link this in the pinned comment as well. This is going to be a nice beefy pinned comment. It's got the Discord, it's got the first article, and it's got this second article here. And this is an article from Bloomberg Technology.
Yeah, via Yahoo. But yeah, it, this is a blow to the tech market in general. As much as a lot of people haven't heard of WeChat, mostly because the Chinese are not a majority in this country.
Yes.
It really affects a lot of tech markets. I mean, for instance, 20% of iPhone sales come from China. And 1 billion people use WeChat. Now, that's pretty much China's population. So Apple is probably not too pleased. If Steve Jobs was alive right now, I'm sure he'd be swearing.
He'd be taking his essential oil to calm him down from anger.
Yeah, it sure didn't calm down that pancreatic cancer. But
oh God.
I joke.
This is why I believe in Western medicine. But
yeah,
I differ from a lot of anarchists. I believe in vaccines, Western medicine.
Yeah, no, I mean I get it.
People say is bad because the government says it's good.
Yeah. So this keep in mind, this is today. I mean, this has been going on today in the market. The stock fell 4.8% today.
Yeah, that actually gives a good perspective on how much these guys are worth too.
Yeah.
If the entire Hong Kong stock has fallen 4.8%.
Yeah, $66 billion in trade market value. I mean, that's a number that most people just really dream of even putting a dent in their lifetime when it comes to income, right?
Oh yeah. 66 billion. I will never every dollar I see in my life, whether it even be like electronic through online banking or just like physical money, I will never even see a tiny fraction of that.
No.
Unless my anarcho-transhumanist utopia comes to life and I'll be an immortal cyborg, but that's at least 40 years from now.
Oh boy. Immortality? Really?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, if that's what you're into, I don't know if I can deal with it that long.
That's my fetish.
Well, we'll see about that 10 years from now. But I mean, you look at this too. They had for 4 months they had a huge surge in their share, and then I think the article here says a 70% surge, which put shares into record territory and made the internet giant Asia's most valuable company at nearly $700 billion.
That is a big number.
Yeah,
that is 300 billion away from a trillion. Which is another very large number. It's obviously not the biggest number, that being infinity. But one day they'll become infinity. No, they won't. That's not possible.
No.
But yeah.
But this is this is a huge dent, and this definitely is much more than just a company ban. This definitely has to do with trade relations and the sort of tense relationship that the U.S. has with China right now. Probably because of Donald Trump. Obviously not all because of Donald Trump. I don't want to
this
be
was
one of those.
Decades in the making. I think Donald Trump certainly didn't help. But this has been at least since, I want to say like 2000.
It's been pretty tense for a while. So, and this is a bit of a, I guess, frosting on the cake. I wouldn't call it the topper. I think the topper would be war. But
the topper would be war, and I don't think war would happen unless we got like John Bolton as president.
Yeah, well, but and his position in Trump's little administration didn't exactly last very long.
No, and plus we haven't gone at war with a superpower in about 75 years. And that was when that one German guy got a little too big for his britches. He tried doing
the thing,
moves.
I think a lot of people sort of fear this idea of war with China, especially if Trump is a two-term president, right? Especially because two-term presidents in general are just raging assholes. But there's a lot more to consider with that. When you look at two superpowers, especially like the United States and China, you're looking at things like, for one, mutually assured destruction.
Yeah. Because war, a lot of people forget this, but war is two-sided. I don't think China wants to do a war either.
No.
No one wants war. It's just way too destructive. We're talking about possibly tens of millions of lives lost.
Yeah. And you're looking at a country like China who's just really, really coming into this a very significant form of power. This is something that could very much affect that, and it's not in their best interest.
Especially since too they have such a huge population, and bigger populations means more deaths. I think this will make World War II look like a little skirmish,
right?
In comparison, right. Because I know, I heard on CNN, yes, Clinton News Network and all that, but my parents watch that because they're kind of liberal. CNN actually said that more Americans have died from the coronavirus. Well, that's a whole other loaded topic.
Yeah.
But more Americans have died from the coronavirus than Americans have died in World War II.
Right.
Judging by those numbers alone. And
right.
So,
the numbers we're working with here.
Yeah. And so that means... and that was only a very tiny percentage of the population. Could you imagine how many more Americans would die in open combat nowadays than that? Like, just to give you an idea of the scale on which our population has increased.
Yeah.
And plus, we're a lot less hardy.
Yeah, it's not really good. It's not really good for anyone. But, there's sort of other things involved here. And the really interesting thing about these two bans, TikTok and WeChat, is, a lot of people talk about the big scare here is the data, right? And we're talking about, the Chinese government being able to access data of Americans, Chinese nationals in the U.S. with WeChat, or Americans in general, period, with like TikTok, right? Unless it's sold to a U.S. buyer, which is really funny because it just means that it's a statement that says big data is not just it's just for Americans, which it's not.
It's definitely not. But these are multinational corporations. We have big data everywhere. We're shitting out data all over the place. We got big data in like Norway. We got big data in like London. We got big data everywhere because these companies, these tech companies, are not just American. We are bleeding data everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's impossible to control where your data is going to.
Yeah, I mean, given the structure of the internet and the way advertising works and data collection and all that other stuff, it's really just impossible to sort of contain that stuff. I mean, as everyday people, we can sort of even take measures to try to contain it, but I mean, still enough of it leaks out where they're always going to be able to figure something out, right? But it is not just for Americans. I mean, this stuff, there's countries everywhere are using this to I don't know, whatever you want to do, advertise to us, spy on us, figure it out.
And at least the U.S. and these other countries, they have regulations on what they can and can't do. Nominally. Obviously, the regulations and the reality are probably a lot different, but they have nominal regulations that control what they can and can't do. In China, the government has a more carte blanche approach to how they can use data, American data. Now, obviously, it shouldn't matter as much because we're not under China's jurisdiction.
Right.
But there's still a risk there. And you can actually still disagree with the TikTok ban while still being concerned about security from China.
Yeah. I mean, the CCP, I think anyone who knows, I mean, anyone alive right now and is paying attention knows that the CCP is very vile, and they'll sort of do anything it takes to get into and maintain power. So when you look at that and then you understand this situation here, it is a genuine risk, and it's something that I guess someone needs to look at here. I don't think a ban is really the answer here. Honestly, they could just develop another app and, well, we're off to the races again, right?
Bring Vine back.
What'd you say?
Bring Vine back.
Right. So, God, please don't.
Damn, Dan.
I mean, Instagram already has Reel, which is their TikTok competitor. I don't.
Oh, God.
We'll see how that goes. But so the CCP is constantly making an effort to do all it can to gain, swallow up, consume, and maintain more power here. A ban just seems to me it's there's not a lot of foresight into this, right? I mean, obviously the answer isn't war because we've already talked about why. But
exactly.
I sort of lost where I was going there.
Yeah, basically you want the free market to compete against these companies, against TikTok, against all the other big data boys, and you're trying to make sure that our data is secure, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, and it is really tough when you look at it from the frame of mind of the situation that we live in now, right? Because when we can talk about the free market and wanting it to be able to compete and all that other stuff. But the thing is that, you're looking at something like TikTok and you're looking at WeChat and things like that, and they're not really coming from a place of an actual free market, right? Mostly because these are companies that are very much involved with the Chinese government. They're either backed by the Chinese government or the Chinese government just has their hands in them, whether they like it or not, because it's the Chinese government, right?
What do you mean? These guys are a people's republic. That means they're run by the people and for the people.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My apologies, comrade.
Next you're going to be telling me the Soviet Union was not a democracy either.
No. But, it's the other funny thing to me here is that only American companies in America are really allowed to spy on us.
Yeah.
And American citizens. China, not so much. It's kind of like an abusive parent who's like, only I'm allowed to hit my kids.
Exactly.
So
it is your God-given right.
Yeah, that's my property.
In fact, he picked out his own Switch to be beaten with, so he had a choice. It's that same line of thinking. I remember my boomer-ass teachers would tell me those stories, and I'd be like, that's kind of abuse, right?
Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that it's child abuse. It's still child abuse. But
it's a free market.
So it will be interesting to sort of watch over the next coming weeks or so how this ban will affect global markets, American markets, obviously, because that's sort of where we're coming from. We are Americans. This is what we're looking at. But it will be interesting to see how much it affects global markets. A ban like this is going to send ripples through economies, the global economies across the world.
Especially because China, it's not just China and America. China has an ass load of assets in Africa and Asia. Obviously Asia, because they're in Asia. And even Europe. And so these assets are definitely going to be affected.
Yeah.
Because Tencent is a very big company.
Yeah.
They are worth a lot more than 10 cents.
Yeah.
And with that, I think we can call it a closing statement. I don't know how to close these things, so thank
you guys very much for listening to Weekly Liberty Rundown. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to hear more, make sure to hit that notification bell, bash it, pound it, smash it.
It is your wedding night with that notification bell. Just annihilate that thing.
Yeah, or if you just went through a really bad breakup, that too.
But I don't recommend annihilating your ex because that's a little illegal.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah. Treat it like you eat after a breakup.
My name is Sean.
And I'm David.
And we will see you guys next week.
Peace.